Every disaster begins before anyone realizes it has already started. At Oro 214 in the North Atlantic, there is no horizon, there is no moon, there is no visible enemy. Two ships are already trying to kill each other, and neither one can see the other at all. They are separated by less than 2,000 yards of black water, close enough that a single correct decision will end the fight in seconds, far enough that a single mistake will mean nothing happens at all. Between them is total darkness, broken only by the faint glow of instrument dials and the low, constant vibration of engines running below the surface. This is killing each other in total darkness. One captain stands on a steel deck exposed to freezing wind, staring into an ocean that gives him no information. The other sits several meters underwater, surrounded by pressure, listening to the sea itself for clues. Neither man knows exactly where the other is. Both know the other is close. Both know that if they hesitate, they will die. No guns are firing, no explosions break the surface. The ocean looks empty because it is hiding everything that matters. The convoy has already passed. That part is over. What remains is pursuit. A destroyer hunting a submarine and a submarine trying to disappear long enough to strike back. The clocks on both vessels are running, but they are measuring different things. Above the water, time is measured in fuel, endurance, and how long sonar contact can be held. Below the water, time is measured in oxygen, battery power, and nerve. The submarine captain cannot see the ship hunting him. He hears it instead. A distant rhythm of propellers, steady and unmistakable. It tells him speed. It tells him direction. It does not tell him distance with certainty, and that uncertainty is dangerous. If he guesses wrong, the next sound will be explosions tearing the water apart around his hull. The destroyer's captain has even less. Sonar returns are weak, distorted by temperature layers and the movement of the sea. A contact appears, fades, reappears somewhere else. It could be the submarine changing depth. It could be nothing. Every course correction risks losing the contact entirely. Every aggressive move risks sailing directly over a torpedo track he will never see coming. Neither man is improvising. Both are following procedures learned through repetition and loss. This war has already taught them what happens to captains who guess, rush, or assume. Submarines die silently. Surface ships disappear in seconds. Survivors are rare and explanations rarer. Above, the Atlantic is calm. Below, it is absolute black. No light penetrates. No human sense functions normally. Sound is everything, and sound lies. The submarine reduces speed to the bare minimum, electric motors barely turning. Inside, the crew stops unnecessary movement. A dropped wrench or a careless step could transmit through the hull and into the water. Men breathe slowly, deliberately. Sweat forms despite the cold. There is nowhere to look, nowhere to go, only waiting. On the destroyer, depth charges are already set, not dropped yet. Set. The captain knows that if he releases them too early, the submarine will evade. Too late, and it will fire. There is no visible feedback, no confirmation until the moment of outcome. When depth charges are released, they fall blindly, exploding at calculated depths based on guesses refined by experience and luck. This is not combat as it appears in reports or headlines. There are no formations, no flags, no lines of sight. There is only interpretation. Every sound is translated into intent. Every silence is treated as deception. The ocean absorbs mistakes without comment. The Atlantic submarine war is fought almost entirely like this. Captain against captain, not face to face, but mind against mind, each trying to imagine what the other is hearing, what the other is thinking, what the other will do next, while surrounded by darkness that erases certainty. Above and below the surface, hands hover over controls. Orders are prepared, but not yet given. The distance between life and death is measured not in firepower, but in seconds of decision made without proof. Nothing moves fast down here, and when it finally happens, it will happen without warning. The destroyer alters course by 10 degrees. It is a small change, almost negligible on the surface, but underwater it reshapes the entire problem. The sonar operator reports a return, faint and unstable. The contact could be slipping deeper, it could be turning, it could be using the temperature layer to blur its outline. None of that can be confirmed. The captain does not ask for certainty. There is none to be had. Below the surface, the change is felt rather than heard. The submarine captain registers it as a shift in rhythm, a slight change in bearing that suggests the ship above has adjusted its hunt. That means the contact is not lost. It means the danger is still immediate. He orders a further reduction in speed. The boat sinks a few meters deeper, careful not to cross the depth at which the hull will begin to complain. Inside the submarine, time compresses. Conversations stop entirely. Orders are passed by gesture or in whispers that barely disturb the air. The crew has learned this discipline the hard way. Earlier in the war, noise had been tolerated. Tools clattered, boots scraped, men talked. Those boats did not return. The destroyer maintained speed just enough to keep sonar effective. Too fast and the noise of its own screws will mask everything. Too slow and the submarine will slip away. The captain stands motionless, eyes fixed on nothing. There is nothing to see. The sea offers no indication that another vessel is directly beneath him, waiting. The first depth charges are dropped not because the captain is confident, but because waiting longer increases the submarine's options. The charges fall into the dark water and detonate below, the explosions transmitted through the hull of the destroyer as dull, heavy thuds. On the surface, there is no fire, no debris, only the sound. Below, the effect is immediate and violent. The submarine shudders as pressure waves slam into its hull. Lights flicker, gauges jump. Somewhere in the boat, a pipe gives way and water begins to spray in a narrow, cutting stream. It is not catastrophic, not yet, but it is not nothing. The submarine captain does not react immediately. Reaction is what the destroyer expects. Instead, he waits through the explosions, counts them, listens to the pattern. Depth charges are as much communication as weapon. Their spacing, their depth, their timing all reveal assumptions. He needs to know what the destroyer thinks he is doing. The destroyer circles, adjusting its pattern. Sonar contact is lost, then briefly regained. The operator reports uncertainty. The captain nods once. Uncertainty is the normal state. He orders another run. Oxygen levels drop incrementally below. Battery power drains with every minute submerged. These are not dramatic changes. They are gradual, invisible, and relentless. The submarine cannot stay down indefinitely. The destroyer knows this. The submarine captain knows the destroyer knows it. This is the structure of the duel. Another pattern of explosions. Closer this time. The hull groans audibly now, a low metallic complaint that everyone aboard recognizes instinctively. The pressure is approaching the margin the boat was designed to endure. The captain orders a slight course change, minimal rudder, nothing that will send a clear signal upward. The destroyer captain waits longer between runs. He is not rushing. Rushing wastes depth charges and reveals impatience. He wants to exhaust the man below, force him into a mistake, born of dwindling air and rising fear. This is not about speed. It is about pressure, applied evenly and without interruption. The sea absorbs everything. Explosions vanish. Sound fades. The surface returns to calm almost immediately. To an outside observer, nothing is happening. But beneath that calm, two crews are being reduced to essentials: breath, sound, time. Hours can pass like this. Sometimes they do. Sometimes the end comes suddenly, without warning or escalation. A correct guess, a sonar return that holds just long enough. A depth charge set a few meters deeper than expected. Or a submarine that times its escape perfectly, slipping away into the dark while the destroyer searches an empty ocean. There is no announcement when one captain has won. There is no acknowledgement from the sea. A submarine that fails simply stops transmitting noise. A surface ship that fails vanishes, leaving behind wreckage and oil that spread and then disappear. In the Atlantic, most of these duels end without witnesses. Records are written later based on assumptions and incomplete data. A contact believed destroyed. A ship believed sunk. A patrol that never returns. What actually happened remains sealed in darkness, where two captains made decisions without sight, without confirmation, and without margin, and then the ocean closes again, hiding everything that mattered. The waiting is the hardest part, and it belongs almost entirely to the men below the surface. Every explosion forces a calculation, every silence forces another. The submarine captain knows that the destroyer cannot remain perfectly positioned forever. Sonar degrades with distance and angle. Water layers bend sound. Fatigue affects operators. Somewhere above, men are straining to hold an invisible thread. Inside the submarine, the air grows heavier. Carbon dioxide is scrubbed, but imperfectly. The smell of oil, sweat, and metal becomes constant. Condensation forms on bulkheads and drips to the deck. The crew does not speak about it. They focus on gauges, on needles that move slowly but never stop moving. Depth, battery, air, time. The captain studies the numbers and listens. The destroyer's screws are still there, steady and methodical. That means the ship has not given up. It also means the ship has not committed to a final attack. The captain understands what that implies. The man above is patient. He intends to wait. On the destroyer, patience is also under strain. Fuel is finite. Depth charges are finite. The convoy that was being protected is already miles away, exposed to other threats. The captain is making a calculation of his own. How long is this submarine worth the risk of abandoning other duties? How confident is he that the contact below is still there? Another sonar return flickers, weaker now. The operator adjusts settings, compensating for noise and sea conditions. The contact sharpens briefly, just enough to suggest movement. The submarine may be preparing to surface later, hoping darkness or weather will provide cover. The captain orders another attack run. Depth charges fall again, closer than before. The explosions are tighter, more concentrated. Below, the submarine is thrown hard against its restraints. Men are knocked off balance. A valve fails completely, and water pours in faster now. Damage control teams move immediately, sealing compartments, tightening bolts by feel and memory. The boat holds, but only just. The submarine captain knows the margin is narrowing. Staying down much longer risks losing control entirely. Surfacing too early risks instant destruction. He must choose a moment that does not announce itself. A moment when the destroyer expects nothing. He orders a change that seems counterintuitive. The submarine rises slightly, then levels off. Not enough to break the surface. Enough to alter the acoustic picture. The screws change pitch. The noise signature shifts. It is a gamble. It might suggest preparation to surface, or it might suggest damage. Either interpretation could provoke a reaction. On the destroyer, the sonar contact blurs again. The operator reports uncertainty, a widening of the return. The captain considers his options. Another attack might force the submarine to the surface, or it might waste the last clear chance to maintain contact. He delays just long enough to be dangerous. That delay is what the submarine captain has been waiting for. He orders full power on the electric motors. The boat surges forward in near silence, turning sharply beneath the destroyer's path. It is a maneuver that must be timed exactly. Too soon, and the destroyer will still be positioned to attack. Too late, and the boat will be directly under the next pattern of charges. The destroyer feels nothing. The ocean does not react. Sonar briefly loses the contact entirely. The operator calls it out, tension rising. The captain orders a rapid turn, trying to reacquire. For a moment, there is nothing. Then the contact reappears, but not where it should be. The bearing is wrong. The distance is increasing. The submarine is moving away. The destroyer accelerates, but the window is closing. Speed increases noise. Noise degrades sonar. The submarine slips into the wider ocean, using depth and distance to erase itself. The captain orders one last attack run, more out of discipline than expectation. The charges explode in empty water. Below, the submarine continues on, damaged but alive. The captain orders reduced speed again. The crew remains silent, listening for pursuit that does not come. Minutes pass, then more. Eventually, the sound of screws fades into nothing. There is no celebration. Survival is not victory. It is simply continuation. The boat must still surface eventually. Repairs must still be made. The Atlantic remains hostile, indifferent, and full of unseen threats. Above, the destroyer circles once more, then turns back toward its assigned route. The captain records the encounter as inconclusive, a contact lost, a probable submarine driven off. He will never know how close he came or how close the other man came to failing. Both captains continue their patrols, carrying with them decisions made in total darkness. They will fight again against different opponents under the same conditions. Most of these encounters will end the same way, unresolved, unobserved, absorbed by the sea. And some will end suddenly, with no time for adjustment at all. In the Atlantic, that is how killing each other in total darkness usually ends. The war beneath the Atlantic does not reward patterns. What worked once cannot be trusted again. Every encounter resets the rules, shaped by weather, water temperature, crew fatigue, and decisions made with incomplete information. Captains learn this quickly, or they do not survive long enough to learn it at all. For the submarine that escaped, the damage is assessed in silence. Compartments are checked, leaks are controlled, batteries are conserved. The boat does not surface immediately. Surfacing is a statement, and statements attract attention. Instead, the captain holds depth, letting the ocean settle, letting sound return to its natural state. Only when the sea offers nothing back does he consider the next move. On the destroyer, the crew resumes routine. Sonar scans empty water. Lookouts stare into darkness that hides nothing and everything. The captain stands watch longer than required, not because of regulation, but because the encounter has not resolved cleanly. An unresolved fight lingers. It sharpens caution. It slows decisions. It follows men into the next contact. Most Atlantic engagements do not end with a confirmed sinking. They end like this, with separation. One side disengages. The other assumes effect. Reports are filed using words that leave room for error. Probable, possible, unconfirmed. The sea allows this ambiguity because it conceals outcomes as efficiently as it conceals intent. Night after night, these duels repeat across thousands of miles. Sometimes the roles reverse. Sometimes the submarine is the hunter, stalking a surface ship it can hear but not see, calculating speed and angle by sound alone. Torpedoes are fired on predictions, not certainty. The explosion, if it comes, is felt before it is understood. When a surface ship is hit, there is rarely a second chance. Damage control races against time measured in minutes. Power fails. Compartments flood. The ship lists and then disappears, leaving survivors scattered in cold water that kills slowly and without distinction. The submarine that fired the torpedo may never know exactly what it struck. It will hear the explosion, perhaps breaking sounds, and then nothing. There is no closure in these moments, no visual confirmation, no acknowledgement from the enemy. Only the knowledge that a decision made in darkness has produced an irreversible result somewhere beyond reach. The psychological weight accumulates. Captains carry it quietly. There is no place to discharge it, no way to explain it fully to crews who must continue functioning. Fatigue compounds. Judgment narrows. The line between patience and hesitation becomes thinner with every patrol. Technology advances, but not enough to remove uncertainty. Sonar improves, but water remains complex. Radar helps on the surface, but it does not penetrate depth. The fundamental condition persists. Men making lethal decisions without sight, trusting instruments that offer suggestions rather than answers. The Atlantic does not favor courage or caution. It favors accuracy under pressure. And accuracy here is never absolute. It is statistical. It is inferred. It is accepted with the understanding that error will be punished immediately and without appeal. As the war progresses, losses mount quietly. Boats fail to return. Ships vanish from schedules. Families receive notices that say little and explain nothing. The details remain classified or unknown or both. The ocean keeps its record intact. For those still fighting, the pattern continues. Darkness, sound, waiting. A contact that might be real. A decision that must be made anyway. The moment of action arrives without warning and passes just as quickly. Some nights end with separation. Some end with destruction. None end with certainty. In the Atlantic, killing each other in total darkness is not an exception. It is the condition of the war. By the middle years of the war, most captains no longer believed in clean outcomes. The idea of a decisive engagement, clearly won or lost, belonged to surface battles where smoke and flame marked the end. Beneath the Atlantic, outcomes dissolved into probability. A submarine failed to return. A ship did not arrive. Somewhere between those two facts, decisions had been made in darkness. Crews adapted to that reality without discussing it. Men learned to interpret the smallest details. A change in pitch, a pause in machinery, the way sound carried differently at certain depths. These were not skills taught formally. They were absorbed through exposure and loss. Every patrol added to an internal library of moments that could not be fully explained, only remembered. For submarine captains, isolation was constant. Once submerged, communication with command ceased entirely. No updates, no guidance, no confirmation that the situation elsewhere had changed. Decisions were made with whatever information had been gathered before diving and whatever could be inferred afterward. If that information was wrong, there was no correction coming. Surface captains faced a different isolation. They operated in open water, often alone, responsible for protecting convoys stretched thin across thousands of miles. Escorts were too few. Coverage was incomplete. Every contact forced a choice between pursuit and duty. Chase the submarine and leave the convoy exposed, or stay with the ships and let the threat slip away. Either option carried consequences that would only become visible later. The darkness erased hierarchy. Rank did not change physics. Experience mattered, but only until conditions shifted. A seasoned captain could be undone by a single misinterpretation. A new one could survive by waiting when instinct demanded action. The ocean did not reward confidence. It tolerated only restraint applied at the correct moment. When engagements ended in destruction, they ended abruptly. A hull breached. A pressure spike no structure could absorb. The transition from function to failure was measured in seconds. Crews often had no time to understand what had happened. The sea closed in immediately, sealing evidence and explanation together. Those who survived carried forward a distorted sense of time. Hours of waiting overshadowed seconds of action. The memory of explosions faded faster than the memory of listening for them. Long after patrols ended, many captains recalled not the moment of firing or attack, but the stretch before it, when nothing happened and everything was possible. As the war dragged on, tactics refined, but the fundamental duel remained unchanged. Darkness above, darkness below. Sound as the only bridge between two minds trying to locate each other without being found. The Atlantic stayed vast enough to absorb countless such encounters without visible trace. Each successful patrol encouraged repetition. Each loss adjusted assumptions. Slowly, statistically, the balance shifted, but no individual engagement reflected that shift clearly. For the men involved, every duel felt singular, immediate, and terminal. When the war finally ended, it did not resolve these encounters retroactively. Logs were compared, claims were matched where possible, gaps remained. Some losses could never be accounted for with certainty. Boats went missing without record of engagement. Ships disappeared with no confirmed attacker. The darkness that had defined the war preserved those uncertainties permanently. What remained was a pattern of fighting unlike any other. No lines, no fields, no visible enemy. Only captains interpreting fragments of reality and acting before those fragments vanished again. In the Atlantic, men did not fight what they saw. They fought what they believed was there and accepted the consequences when belief and reality failed to align. That was the war beneath the surface. Not dramatic, not visible, and never fully known. Even when contact was broken and the ocean returned to silence, the encounter did not end cleanly. It stayed with the crew in the form of heightened caution. Every sound afterward was examined more closely. Every anomaly carried more weight than it had before. The sea does not reset between engagements. It accumulates tension. On submarines, men learn to sleep in short, shallow intervals. Full rest was impossible. The boat was never truly safe, even when no enemy was detected. Surfacing invited aircraft. Submerging invited destroyers. Every state carried risk, and the captain balanced them continuously, adjusting depth and speed not for comfort, but for survivability. On escort ships, watches were extended and compressed depending on perceived threat. Sonar operators strained their hearing until fatigue distorted perception. A phantom contact could hold a ship in pursuit for hours, burning fuel and attention. A real contact could disappear the moment confidence set in. The difference between the two was often known only in retrospect, if at all. Weather complicated everything. Heavy seas masked sound and visibility on the surface, but they also disrupted sonar returns. Calm water improved detection, but made ships more vulnerable to torpedoes. Night offered concealment to submarines on the surface, but it also erased visual cues for escorts. Every advantage came paired with a disadvantage, and captains learned to exploit neither fully. Technology advanced unevenly. Radar gave surface ships new reach, but only above water. Improved sonar provided clearer returns, but only under specific conditions. Submarines gained better batteries and quieter motors, but only at the cost of complexity and maintenance. None of it removed the fundamental uncertainty. It only shifted where it appeared. For crews, the enemy was rarely personal. They did not see faces or flags. They did not hear voices. The enemy existed as a sound pattern, a contact marker, a set of numbers on a plotting table. When a kill was made, it was registered as a change in data. The emotional weight came later, if it came at all. Losses were absorbed into routine. When a submarine failed to return, its absence was noted, and operations continued. When a ship was sunk, routes were adjusted, and escorts reassigned. The war at sea could not pause to account for individual outcomes. The Atlantic was too large, the demands too constant. Captains aged quickly under these conditions. Responsibility did not lessen with experience. It increased. Every successful patrol reinforced the expectation that the next decision would be just as precise. Every mistake observed in others served as warning, not reassurance. Survival did not imply mastery. It implied that error had not yet occurred. The duel in darkness shaped behavior even outside of combat. Men moved more carefully. They spoke less. They trusted instruments, but questioned their interpretation. Silence became habitual, not just tactical. It followed crews ashore and lingered after patrols ended. There were no victory scenes in this war, no captured ground, no visible advance. Progress was measured in tonnage sunk or convoys delivered, abstract figures that did not resemble the reality of the encounters that produced them. The fighting itself remained hidden, unresolved, and often unacknowledged. What defined the Atlantic War was not a single engagement, but repetition. The same conditions recreated endlessly across different coordinates, different crews, different ships, the same darkness, the same dependence on sound, the same acceptance that certainty would never arrive in time. Each duel ended either in disappearance or withdrawal. Both outcomes were absorbed by the ocean without distinction. The water closed. The noise faded. The record remained incomplete. And then, somewhere else, another contact appeared. The appearance of a new contact always felt the same, regardless of how many times it happened. A mark where none had been before. A sound that did not belong. A deviation from the background noise the crew had learned to treat as normal. Everything else narrowed around that point. Captains did not announce these moments dramatically. There was no raised voice, no visible shift. A course change, a depth adjustment, a request for confirmation that might not come. The machinery of the ship continued to operate as designed, indifferent to the weight now placed on it. In submarines, the first response to contact was almost always restraint. Power was reduced, movement was minimized. The instinct to act immediately was suppressed because it so often led to exposure. Survival depended on being less obvious than the ocean itself, and that required patience that bordered on paralysis. On the surface, restraint took a different form. Escorts held formation longer than felt comfortable. Sonar contacts were verified and re-verified. Depth charges were prepared, but not released. Once they were dropped, the encounter would escalate irreversibly. Until then, the possibility remained that nothing was there at all. This balance between action and inaction defined the war more than any weapon. Too aggressive, and a captain revealed himself. Too cautious, and the enemy escaped or struck first. The margin between the two was never stable. It shifted with conditions no one fully controlled. When attacks did occur, they were sudden and contained. A brief spike in sound, a violent interruption of silence, then either destruction or nothing. There was no prolonged exchange, no gradual resolution. The ocean did not allow sustained confrontation. It forced conclusions quickly, then concealed them completely. For the crews, the emotional response lagged behind the event. During an engagement, there was only process. Afterward, when the noise faded and the ship or boat moved on, the weight settled in. Men replayed decisions internally, questioning small choices that could not be revisited. The lack of confirmation made this worse. Doubt lingered where certainty would have ended it. Over time, captains learned to live with unresolved outcomes. They recorded what they could and moved on. The alternative was paralysis. The Atlantic demanded continuity. Patrols followed patrols. Routes were covered again and again. The same waters absorbed new encounters without reference to the old. The scale of the ocean ensured anonymity. Even within the same war zone, crews rarely encountered the same opponent twice. Each duel was isolated, its participants unaware of the broader pattern they were contributing to. Strategy existed above them. Experience existed within them. Between the two was darkness. As the war progressed and pressure increased, encounters became more frequent. Convoys grew larger, escorts became more coordinated. Submarines adapted by staying down longer, running quieter, accepting greater physical strain. The duel intensified not through spectacle, but through attrition. Eventually, the balance tipped, not because darkness was defeated, but because endurance was. Submarines ran out of safe options. Surface ships covered more water. The statistical advantage shifted slowly, invisibly, without altering the nature of individual encounters. Each fight still felt absolute to those inside it. When the war ended, it did not bring clarity to what had happened beneath the Atlantic. It ended patrols. It ended orders. It ended the need to listen for threats that might or might not be real. But it did not illuminate the darkness retroactively. The ocean kept its record intact. Steel lay on the seabed where it had failed. Other steel continued to float, marked by decisions made without sight. The men who survived carried with them a memory of fighting an enemy they almost never saw. In the Atlantic, that was the war. Captains dueling without witnesses. Crews enduring without explanation, killing each other in total darkness, and then moving on as if nothing had been revealed at all. By the final years of the war, the pattern was fully set and fully understood by those still alive to recognize it. No one expected clarity anymore. No one waited for certainty. The Atlantic had taught its captains that certainty arrived only after it was no longer useful. The encounters became shorter, more compressed, not because the fighting was easier, but because the margins had narrowed. New sensors reduced some blind spots and created others. More escorts meant less room to maneuver. Longer submerged endurance meant greater physical strain. The duel remained the same shape, but the pressure increased from every direction at once. For the men below the surface, the sea felt closer now. Depth limits were approached more often. Hulls creaked under stress that had once been avoided. Battery calculations left less room for caution. Oxygen was stretched thinner. Decisions that once could be delayed now had to be made earlier, with less information and higher risk. On the surface, patience became harder to maintain. The expectation of contact was constant. False alarms accumulated. Crews chased shadows for hours, only to be pulled back by new orders before resolution. Every escort captain knew that somewhere nearby a submarine might be listening, waiting for the moment when discipline slipped. The weight of repetition changed judgment, not dramatically, not visibly, but incrementally. Men trusted patterns more than possibilities. They leaned on experience even when conditions differed. That was the danger now. The ocean had not changed, but the men had. Some captains sensed when the balance had shifted against them. Submarine commanders understood when escape options narrowed to theory rather than reality. Escort captains recognized when pursuit no longer guaranteed containment. Neither side spoke of it. Recognition did not change the requirement to act. The final exchanges often carried no escalation, no extended chase, no prolonged uncertainty. A contact appeared. A response followed. One side did not return. The ocean closed immediately, as it always had, offering no explanation and no evidence beyond absence. Those moments were not recorded as climactic. They entered logs as times and coordinates. A patrol ended. A ship failed to arrive. The men who remained moved on to the next task, because there was always another route to cover, another contact to investigate, another stretch of darkness waiting. What had begun as innovation and surprise ended as endurance. The duel did not evolve into something clearer or cleaner. It simply continued until one side could no longer sustain it. Even then, the finality was administrative, not experiential. The darkness never lifted for those inside it. The Atlantic did not change its nature at the end. It did not reveal what it had hidden. It remained vast, opaque, and indifferent, holding the remains of thousands of decisions made without sight. The war was ending above the surface. Beneath it, the last calculations were already complete. When the orders finally stopped, the ocean did not respond. There was no signal beneath the surface that the war had ended. Sonar still returned noise. Water still bent sound. Steel still creaked under pressure. The Atlantic remained exactly what it had always been. Submarines surfaced cautiously, not because they expected attack, but because habit no longer released its grip. Destroyers continued scanning out of reflex, crews listening for threats that were no longer coming. It took time for men to accept that silence now meant safety, not danger. The record of the war beneath the Atlantic remained incomplete by design. Logs contradicted each other. Sinkings were claimed and later withdrawn. Some losses were never explained at all. Boats vanished without witnesses. Ships disappeared between positions with no confirmed cause. The darkness that defined the fighting preserved its ambiguity to the end. What could be counted was absence. Crews that did not return. Names that stopped appearing on duty rosters. Routes that required fewer escorts because there were fewer ships left to threaten them. These were the only confirmations the ocean allowed. The captains who survived did not speak often about their duels. There was little to say. They had not seen their enemies. They had not known when decisions crossed the line between survival and destruction. They had acted on sound, inference, and pressure, and accepted outcomes they could not verify. There were no moments of recognition, no acknowledgement exchanged across the water. The war did not end with one side seeing the other clearly for the first time. It ended with disengagement, with orders rescinded, with engines slowed, and then stopped. Beneath the Atlantic, the wrecks remained where they had fallen, scattered across thousands of miles of seabed. They marked where calculations failed or succeeded by margins too small to measure afterward. They lay in darkness without commentary, indistinguishable from one another once the noise had faded. What defined the undersea war was never spectacle. It was restraint under pressure. It was patience stretched to its limit. It was men killing each other without sight, without confirmation, and without witnesses, trusting that the decision made in darkness would hold. The ocean closed over everything. It always had.